Okay, so picture this. You're in the 1930s, in the middle of the Great Depression, and there's this farming family in Ontario just barely scraping by 5 kids already. And then they have quintuplets.
Yeah, the Dionne quintuplets, it's really something else, isn't it? 5 babies all at once during the Depression. You really couldn't make this up. It's like a movie or something.
Totally. It's like something out of Hollywood, 5 identical girls.
Ah.
It's crazy. But I know it wasn't all happy times for them, right? What happened?
Well, it's a real mixed bag, to be honest. Like, you have this incredible medical marvel. These are the first quintuplets known to survive infancy, and it's the Depression, so everyone is kind of looking for something good to hold on to.
So they were kind of like this symbol of hope, I guess,
Yeah.
for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. The whole world just latched onto their story. It was everywhere, newspapers, photos, and then the donations started pouring in from all over the place. Incubators, clothes, money, you name it. It was insane, just a complete media frenzy, unlike anything really before that point.
Wow, that makes sense. But I know things took a turn, right? What happened to the girls?
Well, their father, Dionne, he was really struggling financially and saw a way out. He signed a contract with some businessman to put the girls on display at the Chicago World's Fair.
Wow. I can see how in that situation he might do that, trying to provide for his family.
Yeah, but people were outraged. They said it was exploitation pure and simple, using these innocent babies as a sideshow. The public really went after the Dionnes, and in the end, the Canadian government stepped in.
That's right. They passed that Quint Guardianship Act, didn't they? Where the girls became wards of the state. Is that even legal?
Well, it was definitely controversial. It all came down to public pressure and people doubting the parents could handle everything. It basically meant the government controlled the girls' lives until they were 18.
So they were taken from their family.
They were. They moved the girls to this special facility called the Defoe Hospital and Nursery.
Get this. It was right across the street from their family's home. That's so sad.
Uh,
And then thousands of tourists would come see them every day, right?
Yeah, you're not kidding. It ended up being over 3 million people in the 9 years the girls were there. They put them in this observation gallery so people could watch them play, eat, even sleep all through a one-way screen.
So the government takes them away to stop exploitation, and then they basically create a human zoo.
You could say that, and it got even worse. Their pictures were everywhere, marketing campaigns, products, even a movie. Huge amounts of money were made, but almost none of it went to the girls.
It's just not, right?
Mhm.
They were making money off of them, and the Quints got nothing. What about their parents? Did they ever get to see their own kids?
They had these supervised visits, but they were basically kept separate from their daughters. Dionne, he really fought to get custody back. He even said the government was doing the same thing. They accused him of exploiting the girls for money.
Did he win? Did he get them back?
He did after almost 10 years. The quintuplets went back to their family when they were 5 years old. There was a huge reunion, lots of press, of course, but things were very complicated.
That's where it gets really tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't actually a happy ending for the girls at all, was it?
Not really. No, it must have been so hard for those girls, you know? Imagine being taken from everything you know and put into a family with people you don't even know.
And they had a lot of siblings too, right? It wasn't like it was just them.
Yeah, there were 8 other kids already. So it was a huge adjustment for everyone. And on top of all that, there were those allegations of abuse happening in the family.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It came out that their father was abusing them, didn't it?
It did. Years later, 3 of the sisters said that their father had sexually abused them. They tried to report it at the time, but no one believed them. It's just heartbreaking. They must have felt so trapped.
It's awful to think that this family that was supposed to be so happy and full of miracles was dealing with all that behind closed doors. And it makes you wonder about how those girls were affected, you know? Growing up like that,
Absolutely. I mean, just think about it. They had no normal childhood. They were raised in this made-up world, always on display. They were never really seen as separate people, just as the Dionne quintuplets.
right? It's like they were all one person instead of 5 different people. I even read somewhere that they had to share a birthday cake.
Yeah,
How do you even figure out who you are in a situation like that?
exactly. It's no wonder they had trouble with their identities later on. And you have to wonder how much control they actually had over their own lives, even after they went back to their family.
They were still in the public eye, weren't they? They lived in that big house that was specially built for them, right?
That's right, the big house. It was basically a mansion, and it was meant to hold their big family and all the visitors and press that were always around. It was paid for with the money that was made from the quintuplets, but they had no say in how it was spent.
So even though they were back with their family, they were still living in a foxhole, basically.
Right.
Exactly. They were constantly being watched, their every move reported on. Every little thing they did was treated like a big deal. It shows how being famous, especially when you're so young, can be really damaging.
And then two of the sisters died so young, didn't they? That must have been really hard for the others.
Yeah, Emily died when she was only 20 from complications with epilepsy, and then Marie died at 35 from a blood clot in her brain. Both of their deaths were huge news stories. It brought all the attention back to the quintuplets, even though they had mostly faded from the spotlight by then.
What about the other three sisters? What happened to them after they left home?
Well, they all tried to find their own way to live normal lives. They got married, had kids, all those things. They were trying to get away from all the craziness they'd been through.
But they could never really escape it, could they? I mean, they were a part of history, the Dionne quintuplets.
Yeah, that's true. No matter what they did, they couldn't change what had happened to them. All the trauma, all the exploitation, it stuck with them. It just shows how some things can affect you forever, no matter how hard you try to move on.
It's interesting to me that even with everything they went through, the sisters stayed close. It seems like they always had each other's backs.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing. They had this bond that no one else could understand. In the 90s, they all came together to demand compensation from the government for how they'd been treated.
And they won, right? They actually got money from the government.
They did. In 1998, after fighting for years, they got a huge settlement. It was a big deal, a sign that things were changing and that people were finally starting to understand what those girls had been through.
I can't imagine how hard it must have been to have to bring up all those painful memories again after so long.
Yeah, but it shows how strong they were. They wanted to take control of their story and make things right. It's also part of a bigger change in society where we're starting to see how important it is to protect vulnerable people, especially kids, from being taken advantage of.
Their story really makes you think about how we treat people who are different, who stand out from the crowd, whether it's because something good happened or something bad.
You got it. The Dionne quintuplets, they force us to think about fame and how the media can twist things around and how we have to be careful not to get caught up in the hype and forget about the actual people involved.
Yeah, it does feel like the whole country was primed for a story like theirs.
Exactly. The 30s, especially with the Depression, everyone was looking for a distraction, something positive. And here were these five little miracles beating the odds. It was just what people needed.
It's like they represented this idea of new life, you know? Even when things were so bad, he showed that life could still go on.
Right, and there was this whole fascination with multiples back then. But nothing came close to the Dionne quintuplets. People have always been drawn to the unusual things they can't explain.
But wanting a good story can sometimes go too far right, like we see today with all the gossip and reality shows. It's like people's privacy doesn't matter anymore.
That's what's so important about the Dionne quintuplet story. It reminds us how much power the media has to make people into heroes or villains, and we have to think about what we're doing when we buy into those stories.
We have to be more careful as an audience, you know. Ask questions and see the real people behind the headlines.
Especially when it comes to kids. We can't let their lives be used for entertainment or to make money.
And even though this all happened a long time ago, the same problems are still around today, right? With social media and everything, it's hard to know what's real and what's not.
That's true. We have to be aware and learn from what happened to the Dionne quintuplets and make sure we protect kids today.
So after looking at everything that happened to them, it's hard to know how to feel. It's an amazing story, but also really sad.
I think the key is to remember that it's a human story more than anything else. It's about five people who went through something incredible and just wanted to live normal lives. If we can see that and learn from it, then maybe something good can come out of all this.
It's definitely a story I won't forget. And I hope our listeners will take some time to think about what we've talked about today. The power of stories, the importance of being ethical, and the impact that Dionne quintuplets had on the world.